Welcome to Inside the Keyway. We're back with another episode looking at all things NBL. If you love the NBL, you're in the right place. Hopefully, we sound like we know what we're talking about. So settle in as we step inside the Keyway. I'm Nathan Shaw, and I'm joined by Cameron Paulak. Cameron, how are you today?
I'm good, Nathan. Thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. I'm feeling good in the hot seat after doing the intro. Promoted, happy with my promotion.
Thought we'd change it up a little bit.
I think we'll get some good feedback on that.
Hopefully, because I think I suck at it. So,
have you gotten feedback on that, or is that
no? That's just
self-reflection?
Self-reflection, yes, absolutely. So this episode, we're going to continue our season breakdowns and reviews of the teams. Today, we're looking at the JackJumpers and Melbourne United, and as always, we'll start in sort of order of how they finished. So Nathan's gonna tackle the JackJumpers for us. What have you got for us?
Tough old year for Tassie. I think when we did our preseason predictions, I had them definitely in the six, as I'm sure a lot of people did, because that's just what you expect from them. In the end, 6 on the ladder, 14 wins, 19 losses, and knocked out in the first round of the play-in by Melbourne United. So what went right for Tassie this year? I think Bryce Hamilton is the first thing I got written down. His signing, he was a legit number one option for the team, averaging 18.2 points a game before going down late in the season with, I think, an ACL. Josh Bannon, the signing of Josh Bannon was huge. I think everyone just knew as soon as he joined Scott Roth's program that he was going to excel there. And he was 15.5 points and 9 rebounds a game, and stepped into basically a small centre spot once Magnay was injured by the end of the year. And then when Hamilton was gone as well, he was carrying that team by the end of the season. Nick Marshall's another one I got written down here. Pretty much unwanted by Adelaide the year before, not played too much, came to Tassie and just showed how elite their development program is there. Was their main defender by the end of the season. They were putting him on Cotton and Davis, and he was doing quite well in those ones for someone who was never known for their defence. Also, things going right. Just even though they finished 14 and 19, they still had that team identity, that JackJumper identity that they've always had for the last 5 years. Gritty, defensive, and almost always competitive. They went into that Melbourne knockout game with almost all their starting 5 out, and people were still not willing to rule them out because that's just what they do.
Yeah.
What went wrong for Tassie is an easy one. It's the injuries. Sean McDonald, right at the start of the year, which forced an import reshuffle. They had to bring Tiger Campbell in very late, who probably in the end didn't really suit the system or just wasn't good enough for what they were trying to do. Magnay was injured, Hamilton's injured, Deng missed time, Johnson, their other import, missed time, Drimic missed time. There was a lot of injuries, so they did pretty well to get to 14 and 19 with all of that going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had their best win of the season late October before everything fell apart, a 90-89 win in Sydney. That was when they were down 16, I think, in the fourth quarter. Went on a 12-0 run and won on the Nick Marshall buzzer beater. I think that's when everything turned for Sydney. That's when all the pressure came on Gorgon that week, around that time, and that was the one that triggered their winning run. Their worst loss I had the last game of the season, which was at home, and they lost 103-70 to Illawarra. They were, as I've said, they were well undermanned, but you don't see them lose games like that anywhere, let alone at home. They were locked into 6th, so they didn't have really anything to play for, but they just really hit the wall on that one.
Yeah.
Just their stats leaders. Hamilton was their top point scorer, 18.2 per game. Bannon with 9.5 rebounds, and Tiger Campbell 3.8 assists per game. And I think looking back, probably the point guard situation, apart from the injuries, the point guard situation was one of their major undoings.
Yeah.
They planned to have McDonald and didn't work out.
Yeah, I agree. I do think they didn't really accommodate for a backup for Magnay as well. They were very light on at that centre position, which, considering he's injury prone, not having that backup really set for them. I think that really hurt them towards the end there as well. Bannon did a great job battling away at that small centre spot, but he can only do so much. I do think Bannon remaining injury-free really highlighted how good he was, and I said that that's what he needed to do for the season. That's why I wanted him to return to the Bullets. I wanted to see him go through a season uninjured to really highlight how good he is. Clearly, he had to go somewhere else to remain injury-free, and that just showed how good he really is.
I think on your no backup for Magnay point, I think the idea was to bring in a Marcus Lee type, which we always refer to backup centres as, before McDonald went down, because Tiger Campbell was that third import spot and they had to use a point guard on it when they were looking for a backup centre. So that really set them back from the very beginning.
Yeah.
In saying all of that, I think they can turn it around very...
Yeah.
They've got just their team for next year. McDonald's out again. I think we heard this week or last week he's done an ACL, so he's going to be missing the year again, which is devastating. Poor guy. Magnay is still out of contract. They need to bring him back, and as I'm sure we'll go into later, there's a lot of talk of them chasing Taron Armstrong. If they can bring Taron Armstrong in, keep Magnay, have Bannon at the 4, even bring Bryce Hamilton back for the 2 or 3, they've still got 2 other import spots to fill out the other 2 or 3 spot and a backup for anyone there. And I think that's a pretty impressive lineup if they can make that happen. Just looking at the list there, David Johnson was very good. I wouldn't be against them bringing both Hamilton and Johnson back for that 2 and 3 spot. They both knew the system. Johnson was shining towards the end when he had to ball a lot more. Other than that, I think that's about it. You're keeping Marshall, you're keeping Bannon, you're keeping Air. Air's an excellent backup for potentially a Taron Armstrong. Deng, solid, always solid off the bench. You know what you're going to get. But from the out section there, I'd be looking, obviously, Magnay's a huge one, and Johnson and Hamilton.
Yeah. What about Dremic? Or do you think he's had his day?
I feel like he's had his day. He was injured a lot of the season, and when he did play, I feel like they could get something out of someone younger in that position. Might be time. Might be his time.
Yeah, that's the way I kind of feel. I think maybe his time has come. He could, I don't know if there's another team out there where he could slot in to go one more round, but yeah, spending most of the season injured, I don't think really helped his cause at all.
No, send him back to Adelaide for one more year. They need shooting.
Yeah. That's if he'd go back to Adelaide.
Did it end badly? I can't remember. He's been there twice, hasn't he? Did he go back after Brisbane? Or was it only before Brisbane?
I think it was only before Brisbane. And then he went from, or did he? Oh, that's a good question. I thought he went from Brisbane to Tassie, but I could be wrong there. He might have gone back for a season.
He went back. He had Adelaide from 2016 to 2020, Bullets 20 to 22, Adelaide for one season in 22, 23, and then Tassie.
Then Tassie, okay. Yeah, so maybe one more stint if they have him, if they've got a need for someone like him coming off the bench, which I'm not really sure they do.
He has signed with the Hobart Chargers in the NBL1, and sometimes I find that that's a bit of a pointer of what their intentions are for the next year.
He could be staying, yeah. Yeah, I agree. Very good. It's a good look at the JackJumpers. And so next we're on to the Melbourne United, who I have. So I've tackled the Melbourne United. They finished 5th with a record of 20 and 13. I like to do things in reverse, that the way Nathan does them. So I start with their best game. So I've gone their win over the Sixers in round 6 at John Cain Arena. It was a bit of a close one. Actually, not a bit of a close one. It was a very close one, 81-80. This was, at the time, a top-of-the-table clash. I'm not 100% sure. Wasn't able to find anything, but I believe both teams at this point in time were undefeated. So I could be wrong there. I thought maybe Adelaide had dropped at least one game at this point in time, but
I think it was 0 losses against 1 loss from memory.
Yeah. But definitely a top of the table clash. Tyson Walker hit a massive 3 to win the game with 2.5 seconds left on the clock. It was Jesse Edwards' best game, I think, for United. He finished with 25 points on a perfect 10 from 10 shooting. And, he just dominated in the paint that game. United showed some real resilience in this one. DJ Vasiljevic had hit a big 3, putting the 36ers out in front. And then, Walker hits a 3 with only a little bit of time left to put United up by 1 to win the game. So it was a game that just really illustrated Vickerman's system perfectly. They really hit the O boards. They got all the extra possessions. There was some really calm decision-making under pressure late in that game. So just really embodied everything that United could have been or wanted to be for the season. Their worst game was at the hands of the Perth Wildcats, and it was actually their play-in game where Perth beat them 95-77. It was a do-or-die game for them, and they just didn't seem to show up in that game. They only scored 24 points after halftime. Goulding was inefficient. Doyle became passive late in the game. Walker, almost invisible once Perth started applying ball pressure. He really struggled with their defensive pressure, and JLA just completely neutralized and overwhelmed Jesse Edwards in the paint. So it wasn't just a loss, it was kind of a mirror image of the decay of their season. They started off brilliantly and faded away, and that's kind of this game in a nutshell. So what went right for them? Obviously, I just said, they began the season 9-0. They reached 13-2 and sat clear on top of the ladder. I don't think anyone else was kind of near them at that point in time. They had the league best offense and defense ratings early through that period. Their bench scoring, rebound, and ball movement were all elite. They looked unstoppable pretty much those first 2 or 3 months. Jesse Edwards, I thought, especially early on, was great. And Fabian Krizlovic, especially once again through that early stage, they were league leaders in offensive rebounds and second chance points. I can't explain what happened after all of that, but through those early months, they were the best. They routinely dominated the possession battle early. StatRaps, which is a good stat site, consistently showed that United were winning the rebounding despite limited minutes for some of their players. They had really good depth on their bench. They were using 10 to 11 players in regular rotation, especially through that early stage. Goulding, Walker, Doyle were all able to carry the scoring load at different times as needed. You had really great defensive players, Bowen, Delaney, Illy when he was available. The big one for me, I think, was Tanner Krebs. He really showed that he deserves more minutes wherever he ends up for next season. He deserves to be playing a lot more than what he has been. And he really showed that at the start of the season when Goulding was out. So at their best, they absolutely just decimated teams with waves and waves of players with their rotations. So what went wrong for them? Their offense became stagnant. Too many possessions just devolved into Doyle isolations, bailout threes from Walker or Goulding. Their assist numbers dropped significantly post round 10, so that was quite alarming for them. And opponents began switching everything and daring Melbourne to sort of beat them one-on-one. Milton Doyle was efficient early on, but as the season went, that efficiency dropped and he seemed to disappear in big moments. Chris Goulding, I think age finally starting to show with him. Career low shooting efficiency, dealing with injuries once again late in the season. And so, yeah, he really wasn't as impactful as he had been in the previous couple of seasons. Tyson Walker really struggled sort of against heavy physical defense. And I think they, as a team, they lacked the true sort of downhill rim attacker. And I'll get to that in a little bit on how I think they can fix that up. So, yeah, and they never really recovered after starting 13-2. You know, they went on a 7-11 run for the rest of the season. And they kind of lost that home court protection that they usually show. So, yeah, they entered the finals pretty flat, carrying a few injuries. And it just felt like there may have been a bit of disharmony amongst the playing group as well. I think we've spoken on that once before, that it looked like there were a few issues there. And I'll talk about that in a bit.
I feel like Illy going down was a big one for them, losing the backup point guard. I think, and originally Walker was only supposed to be back up himself and come off the bench,
That's
and
correct.
Illy was going to be starting, so that was a big one. They didn't get what they have a system where they need production from the 4th spot, and Delaney didn't give what Jack White and someone before that, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, gave. He just wasn't productive enough. And also I've got the Vickerman lost faith in his bench as the season went on. As you said, they had a deep rotation to start with, and then by the end of the season they were running 7 or 8.
Yeah, and the moving Doyle to the bench, I think, as well. I get why he did it, to maybe try and change things up when they started the slide, but he should have moved him back earlier than what, you know, he just kept him coming off the bench for the rest of the season, and I think that was a big mistake. So yeah, some interesting choices there by Vickerman, which is unusual for him. Usually he's on top of his game, but I felt like, there seemed to have been a few issues there, and hey, maybe it's time he does move on and take up those offers in Japan that are being thrown his way, and bring in some fresh eyes and thought process around how the team is run. And I'm sure that they've got their processes in place, that any transition will be fairly smooth. So, we'll have a look at what they've got coming up. So, as you can see, and sorry, I'm going to look at my other screen for this one. They've got Chris Goulding, Kyle Bowen, Shea Illy, and Fabian Krislovic returning. Obviously, there was an option for Finn Delaney, but we now know that he has not taken that up. Out of their outs, I'd like to see them bring Krebs back. As I said before, I think he deserves to be moved up into a starting position for this team. I think he really showed what he's capable of doing. And when Goulding went out, he was absolutely brilliant through that role, through that section. And I think his confidence took a hit when Goulding came back and he wasn't kept in that starting lineup.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see him move into a starting position. I think Illy needs to become their main bench backup PG point guard, and then they go after an import point guard. I don't think I'd be bringing Tyson Walker back for that position. I'd be looking somewhere else. So, I just think Illy's far too injury prone at the moment that you can't rely on him as being your starting point guard. So you're going to have to go out and get that elite import point guard. Now that Delaney's moving on, they'll definitely need to find a replacement for that 4 spot. And I think the person you were actually thinking of before was Luke Travers.
Yes, that's who it was. Yep.
Yeah. So I believe he might be available. I know he got waived by Cleveland. I believe he is trying to get back to the NBA, but that can sometimes be a difficult path. And I think his talent is being wasted in the G League, in all honesty. So for them, I'd be trying to lure him back. He provides that downhill attack of the rim that type of player that I mentioned before that they really lacked. So I'd be trying to bring him back. Great free agent if they can get him. I'd give Edwards another run. As I said, like early on in that season, he was great. A lot of people were like, he's the best center in the league, and then he fell off. But I think he'll be better for having that season under his belt and understanding the league a bit better.
Well, I can tell you on that one that he's not coming back. Olgan has said they don't want an import center. They're going for Wardenberg or Magne because they want to use their import spots on more flexible positions than just plonking them in the middle.
Yeah, okay, I can get that. I just think local bigs are harder to find, and if they go down, they're even harder to replace. So that's an interesting choice. Maybe they've done it before. Maybe he becomes a backup big. That Marcus Lee type. He'd be great, but I think he'd be costing far too much for that.
Yeah.
And so just with their bench, I think what they've got as like with Fabian, Krislovic, Bowen, Illy, Goulding, that's a pretty solid 4 there to have on your bench. And then, I don't know, maybe bringing back someone like Tom Wilson. I don't think they used him very well. He's a far better player than I think what he was given the chance to this season. I'm not sure if they'd run it back with Doyle. He's just too inconsistent. If he was to come back, he'd need to be far more aggressive. But from what we've seen over his time here in the NBL, that's not really who he is, at least not consistently. He does it in patches, but he's not consistently aggressive. So it's an interesting one. I also do feel that part of that group disharmony may have been centered around him. I just feel like there was some issues there. And I know a lot of United fans weren't happy with him by the end of the season. So, maybe finding a replacement for him. I think United do pretty well at finding imports, so they'll be okay there.
Yeah, they'll be okay. Poor things.
Yeah. So that's pretty much my breakdown of United. Like I said, I didn't go too deep in with them. And that their slide is probably the biggest thing and what caused that. And I think I've spoken on it before. There's a lot of little things in there that I think contributed to that slide. I also, because I know you asked me a question about it in one episode and I answered it. But there was a part that I also forgot, is that I do think there were some cracks there even while they were winning at the start of the season. The Brisbane game where Brisbane came back and gave them a real scare, I think highlighted some of those cracks early on, but they were just able to find the wins because of their coach and who they are as a team. But those sort of little cracks were there. They were just managing to get the wins at that time, and then everything fell apart on them. So that's pretty much our breakdowns of the two teams. We're going to move into the news now, and there was quite a bit of news this week. As we know, all the teams had to have their options picked up by 12 p.m. on Monday. So there was quite a lot of news and movement going on. We'll start with Brisbane because that's where I started. So we've got Callum Dalton, Jensen Bradkey, and Sam McDaniel all had their options declined. However, my understanding is that there are negotiations going on between the Bullets and Sam McDaniel, and apparently all seems to be going well on that front. Tristan Devers had his option activated, so he's now been elevated to a full roster spot. I do believe, however, there may still be a chance of him heading to the US college system, but for now he's going to be remaining with the Bullets.
I heard the same thing, that he's been elevated, but he's still got the college out clauses and he's exploring those options.
Yeah, which it's an interesting one, because if he remains at the Bullets, I don't see that they have necessarily a need for going after Luke Paul, the next star.
Yep.
Because that means they'd have an import point guard, because I believe that's what they're going after. You'd have Nordo coming off the bench, and then Devers behind him, and then Luke Paul.
Yeah.
So I don't think you don't need a fourth. So yeah, so that one's an interesting one to watch.
I feel like we'll see him in Sydney. It's all the talk.
Yeah.
And it's all set up for him, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. Tyler Harvey's option has been picked up. Nick Rakocevic has signed a new one-year deal with the 36ers. The big one that I saw this week, and you saw as well, it's been reported that Modi Mayor will no longer be targeted as a return to the Breakers. It's looking like he's heading over to the US to coach an extremely high-level college team. So that kind of sets them back at square one. And I'm not too sure who they look for. I think when we were chatting about it this week, I mentioned Gleason. But, if they were chasing Modi, then they've certainly got the money to throw Gleason's way.
Oh, well,
I just don't know if Gleason would prefer to be in Australia.
I've got a question without notice for you for that.
Okay, we'll move on. And as mentioned above, Finn Delaney, his option has not been taken up, or he's decided not to take his option up with United, so he's looking overseas, and I believe Japan is high on his list. I do wonder if he's unsuccessful with not finding a team overseas. Do you think there's a team that he slots into here?
From what I heard from Olgun the other day, the Japanese deal's done.
Okay.
It's about to be announced, but New Zealand was the first one who came to mind. That's where he was. That's where he's from. They're trying to bring all the New Zealand players back, but that's the easy one. But I think Japan's sorted.
Okay, sweet. And as mentioned also earlier, Ben Ayres' option has been picked up, and Majok Deng has re-signed for 2 years. So that's a good sign for the JackJumpers for both of those players. I did see today that it looks like Joe Ingles has rejected Adelaide's advances. Surprise, surprise. Is anyone really shocked at that? Although it looks like Wells believes he thinks he has a chance to change his mind. I say good luck with that.
Yeah. I think Cotton said he doesn't need them. They don't need him. So that's encouraging.
Yeah. And I don't, I don't think he was ever going to end up there. I think one of the Melbourne teams is where he'll end up. What else have we got? We got Sunday Debt and the Wildcats have mutually parted ways. I think we spoke about that a little while ago, that he was kind of underutilized or being underutilized there. Seemed to have a real drop-off this season, so it's going to be interesting where he ends up. I think he's still got the defensive chops to make an impact in this league, but yeah, I don't think he really suited the Wildcat system. Michael Harris, his option was declined by the 36ers. Mawat Mags, his option's also not being picked up by the Taipans. Rain Smith's option was activated, which is good. I don't know why Cairns were even thinking about that. Lap Mayen's option wasn't picked up by the Wildcats. Bull Qual's option has not been picked up, but it has been reported that they are in negotiations regarding a potential extension. And that's kind of, you're seeing a lot of those with these certain players that's what happens. They decline it so that they can renegotiate. The Kings have activated Quatnoy's option. However, there's a high level of certainty or possibility that he may end up on the free agents list. He's expressed his desire to move on, but the Kings are really keen on him staying.
Which is an interesting one, because you think he did not have a very good grand final series and dropped out of rotation a bit.
No.
Do you think he wants to move on so he can play a bigger role somewhere?
I believe that is the case. He wants a bigger role. He wants to try and move up into a starter role. So I think he's better as that sixth man. I don't know if he's quite a starter, and from what I've heard, it sounding like one of the two Queensland teams could potentially be a landing spot for him. I believe he has some family here in Brisbane, and obviously he played for the Taipans previously as well, so that kind of works in. But yeah, I am fairly certain that he's got family in Brisbane here. I can remember at Nissan Arena during the COVID seasons, he was actually reprimanded because he had jumped up into the crowd after a game to say hello to them all, breaking protocols. So who knows? He could be Brisbane bound. I'm not against that, but I'm not too sure if he's actually a starter. But yeah, I'd certainly like to see him on the team. Harry Frolling's option has been declined. That's not too surprising. DJ Mitchell's option has been declined. Kelly LePepe and the Kings are progressing towards a new deal. I believe that contract would see him with the Kings through to the 2027-28 seasons. Taylor Britt's option was declined by the Breakers. Tyler Robertson's option was activated by the Kings. So many options. Elias Bigger from the Phoenix, he was their DP. He's had his option taken up. So I think that's all the player movements that I've heard of, or options that have been announced so far this week.
What about rumors? What about good rumors? Good stuff. They're good stuff.
I don't know if I've actually heard too many rumors.
I've got two. One I mentioned before. Magnay, Melbourne and Sydney are both chasing Magnay. So it's down to Melbourne, Sydney and Tassie on that one. People will hit the roof if he goes to Sydney. And Sam Wardenberg hasn't settled on Melbourne yet. New Zealand are going hard for him, and Brisbane are also showing interest.
Yeah. Gee, I'd love to see him at Brisbane, move him to the 4 spot.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, with New Zealand, you kind of expect as well. You know, they could rotate him and Menenga.
Yeah.
You know, at the 4 and 5, both of those guys rotating at those two positions, that would be deadly. And same with Bullets, you know, having him at the 4, Harrison at the 5, Holt coming in as well. You could then move Wardenberg up to the 5 and Holt go to the 4. Yeah, I'd be quite happy if the Bullets did that.
Yeah, it would be a good one.
They've got the money for it.
New Zealand would be just as interesting if they could have Jackson Cartwright, Wardenberg, and Menenga as 3 of their starting 5. Things are looking pretty up for them as well. Tough when you don't have a coach, though.
Yeah, well, that's it. I think they really needed that done this week.
Yeah.
Coming into free agency starting as of tomorrow, I think. And we saw with Taipans last season that not having a coach for the majority of your free agency period is detrimental to putting your team together. So, I think they definitely need to get on top of that pretty quick. The other news that I think that was released this week was the salary cap information. So the salary cap has risen for next season. It's gone up 7% to $2,167,358. There are some cents on there, but I'm not adding that in. It's increased to the maximum limit that's permitted. And this is due to the teams that have been willing to spend over the cap for NBL 2026. So the increase for NBL 2026 was only 4%. So that's quite a significant increase moving forward for next season. The salary floor is 1,950,000. Sorry. Yeah, we'll just go 1.9 million and a bit. I think that's up as well. So the salary floor, I believe, is the bare minimum that teams have to be meeting. I can't remember what happens if they don't meet that floor. I don't know whether there's a fine or something, but yeah, that's the bare minimum they've got to meet. The marquees, so marquee player 1, and so this is kind of what their payment goes or is contributed to the cap, I believe. So marquee 1 is 267,000. Marquee 2 is 356,000. Marquee 3 is then 445,000. And marquee 4 is 535,000. So the 5-player, there's a maximum 5-player salary, which is 780,000 and some change. And then the minimum salary for the league is $82,948. But that's for contracted players. There's then a DP minimum salary, which is just over $24,000. So that's all that's been released on the salary so far. I haven't seen any figures being released of total spend for teams for NBL 2026. It's kind of hoping that would be released. It's usually released around about now, but that hasn't come out as yet. It's usually Olgan releasing that info. So I haven't seen any of that as of yet. I am really looking forward to seeing who spent what and where. And free agency officially kicks off tomorrow at 10 a.m., which is Friday the 17th of April. Marketplace doing their live show from 8 a.m. So I'll be online listening in the entire time so we can hopefully have all the news for our next episode.
Hopefully some things happen on the first day. Was it last year they were sitting there doing nothing?
Yeah. So last year was pretty boring. Yeah. I had it playing and I'm just like, I don't see really the need to be sitting here. That's got to be pretty hard sitting in that studio with nothing to really talk about.
Yeah.
So hopefully there'll be some movement. From the sounds of it, there's going to be some early movement going on. So, looking forward to that kicking off. I think so. That's everything I've heard and read this week. Have you got anything else that you might have seen that I've missed?
Well, something else just popped up on my phone that second, and it's Derek Rucker's top 15. It's just come out. Yeah. Here you go.
Is that for this season?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, he does his thing. Mid-season, pre-season, post-season. So here's just a little question without notice for you. Who do you think, what do you think his top 5 is? What is your top 5? And we'll compare it to Derek Rucker's top 5 players.
Top 5. Well, Cotton at 1, Davis at 2. Jeez, I haven't even thought of that.
That's why it's a question without notice.
This is a... McVeigh, he's got to be in there, even though I know he was on a shitty team, but he's still got to be up there.
He's at number 8.
I don't like putting him in, but I go Cooks.
He's number 5.
Just because of his performance through that final series. That's 4. I've got one more. Doolittle.
Yep, he's number 3. Then you got Sobey at 4.
Yeah.
PJC.
Oh, yeah, I forgot Sobey.
PJC at 6.
Okay, yeah. Yep.
JaVale McGee, Jack McVeigh, John Brown III, Cheatham, JLA, Tyson Walker at 12, Sam Menenga 13, Jalen Galloway 14, and Chris Goulding 15.
he really loves Chris Goulding, doesn't he?
Yeah, it does.
I struggle with that one because he didn't have a great season at all.
That's a legacy pick, that one.
Yeah. Other than that, I don't disagree with him this time round. It's probably not too bad. Geez,
so you'd have
you throw though.
If Prather played the whole season, he'd be in there.
Absolutely.
Bryce Hamilton's not in there, and he only missed like the last 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Bannon.
I'd certainly have Hamilton over Goulding.
Bannon and Magnay.
Bannon over Goulding. Magnay
too injured.
Probably too injured. Yeah. If Harrison was more consistent and didn't have the concussion, I'd have him in over Goulding as well. So yeah, everyone else other than Goulding, that I don't mind that list.
Yep, I agree. That was one question without notice, which really came up out of nowhere. My second one is for you. So we were talking about Gleeson before, and I think I asked you this question during the week, but now you've had more time to think about it, which defeats the without notice part. But anyway, does he sit out a year since there doesn't seem to be a job yet, or would he go to New Zealand? So if he's offered New Zealand, does he turn them down, sit out a year and waiting for a big Australian team?
I think New Zealand are offering decent money, so I think he'd probably take it at least for a season. If he's that keen to come back, I think he takes it, because I don't think the option. I don't think his talk has been he wants to come back to Australia. He wants to come back to the league. So if that position's there, and they have a pretty good base foundation, I think he can do a lot with, especially if they're able to get, Wardenberg to throw in along with Menenga and PJC. I think he fits in really well. I know there's still all the talk around Wells potentially not being back at Adelaide, but Olgan's reporting that it's more than likely that he will be back next season. There's no chance of that really happening, I think. So, yeah, I do think he'd go to New Zealand if the chance arose, if he was offered. That's if he was offered. They might not even be considering him. Who knows?
Yeah. I wonder, because I think with the Vickerman chat about leaving with Wells, even if he's not going now, the writing's on the wall. I just wonder if he would just wait it out a bit.
Yeah. I think he might take it if it was offered. So is that all your questions, or do you have another one?
I did have another one. I'll just throw this one at you really quickly. At this stage, this is a premature evaluation. Who comes last next season?
Cairns. Yeah. They've finished 8th, 10th and 9th, all with the same coach, and they're bringing the same coach back.
All right, let's not have a go at 40. I love that guy.
I just think they're repeating the same thing, and they're my pick for last.
Yep.
So I expect the Bullets. I expect them to move up, and that's not just my Brisbane bias. I think with Will Weaver there, he will ensure that they move up. So Cairns.
No further questions.
Awesome. Okay, my two, and they're pretty simple ones. What teams do you think have the most work to do this off season to improve for next season?
Cairns and Brisbane and New Zealand. Melbourne. Just looking at Melbourne's contracted list, I think you had 3 people there, and two of them are 35, and one's on the bench.
4.
Yeah, so Melbourne have a lot of work to do, but you would back them to do the work. Cairns and Brisbane are easy ones. Melbourne, that's probably it. That'd be my top 3. Then I'd probably throw in Illawarra.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Certainly Cairns and Brisbane. Yeah, Illawarra too. Although they've got a really good, solid core coming back. So yeah, but I do think they need to find those right pieces this time round. And my second question, I've only got two, and it's sort of similar vein. So which team or teams are you most excited to watch this off-season?
I just know Melbourne are going to make me angry because they're going to sign. They're just going to sign whoever they want, whenever they want. They'll just do whatever they want.
I'm keen to spend everything.
Yep. I'm keen to see what Brisbane do. Like, very interested to see what Brisbane do. And probably Tassie. They've got key pieces they need to re-sign and bring in, as we went through before. And I think they could go from 6 to top 3 or so pretty easily if they make the right moves.
Yeah.
How about you on that one?
Well, only one team I am excited to watch during the off-season, and that's my Bullets.
What about intrigued? Any others intriguing for you?
New Zealand, especially around the coaching position,
and
seeing who they can put in there. And then, putting some pieces around PJC and Menenga to really shine.
Good question.
I think that's probably the only other team I could care less. I hope all the others burn and crash out.
Wow. I think our NBL sponsorship's out the window.
That's just going to annoy all the fans from other teams, isn't it?
I'm available. They can just take me. I did that intro. If you like the intro.
Okay. It's just my Bullets biasness coming out. I need to see them. I need to see them up the top. I think we deserve it.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It has. Although I did see, I think it was released last week or maybe the week before, and it was when your team last won a championship, and thankfully we're not we're down towards the bottom, but we're not last.
Yeah.
In terms of teams that have actually already won one, Adelaide are last.
Yeah.
And then you've got obviously Phoenix and Cairns haven't won a championship at all. And it was 2007, was the Bullets' last championship. So we are due. At least to finish top 4, we are overdue. And I think, I don't think it'll happen. Yeah, I don't think it'll happen this season. I think we'll finish in the 6th, though. So, yes, that is my bold prediction already without seeing the rest of their team.
Yeah, that's based on a coach.
Yeah. Actually, that could be a good question without notice. Maybe we might do that next week. Is we'll
bold predictions.
Put up where we think bold predictions for next season. We'll do that next episode.
I don't know if you heard it before, but I really cleverly used the term premature evaluation. So maybe we can call it that.
That is what it's going to be called. Alrighty. So I think that's it for this episode. Once again, thank you for joining us, and make sure that you're subscribed so you never miss an episode. And always remember to share it with someone who loves the NBL as much as you do and as much as we do. You can find us, as always, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and you can follow us on all the social media. If you've got any questions or thoughts, please leave them in the comments for us. And until next time, keep watching this space, respect the shot clock, and we'll see you inside the Keyway.
See you next week.